The year is AD 138. Rome sits on its largest cash surplus of any civilization on Earth ever. They've stockpiled 2.7 billion sesterces. That's the kind of cash you could pay 500,000 soldiers every year for 5 years straight. This wasn't new war booty or plunder. It's just careful savings, good management from our new emperor, saving one coin at a time and never leaving Italy. But you're a classical scholar, you know this can't last. In a single lifetime, all that money will be drained away, spent on the significant challenges faced by the Roman Empire, a plague. And in the north, barbarians at the gate, migrations threatening the Roman Empire. This lesson is the end of the Pax Romana, the 200-year golden age that couldn't last forever. You'll learn Rome has a few good emperors left, a huge pile of cash, but not even Marcus Aurelius can stop what's coming. I'm Mr. Hull. This is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take the classical approach to history grounded in what actually matters, like how good leaders face problems, but some are too big to solve. And I want to hand you some of the wisdom in those last good emperors, like Marcus Aurelius. This is lesson number 64 in your complete ancient history course. You will learn about the peak of the Roman peace. You'll see the wisdom of Rome's last good emperors, Marcus Aurelius. And you'll learn the difficult truth that virtue alone cannot repair Rome's broken mechanism of power, as in, how do you get the next emperor? Let's begin. At the end of Hadrian's reign, the empire stretched from the cold north of Britain all the way into the warm sands of the Persian Gulf. It's one giant marketplace, trade, and it's stitched together with an incredible Roman road system and very just and strong Roman law. The man in charge does something that no Roman ruler had really done before. He stayed home in Rome. Hadrian was barely ever there. Antoninus Pius is going to change that. 23 years. He rules the entire known world, and he never once leads an army out in the field. He never tours the far provinces, and he governs from his palace in Rome and his quiet estate in Lorium, basically by writing letters. When Britain needs a war, he doesn't go, he sends a general. He pushes the frontier north and builds the Antonine Wall. It's a turf barrier 39 miles across the neck of Scotland. 39 miles. And that's about, a marathon and a half if you go coast to coast. Antoninus directs the entire thing without leaving. But what makes Antoninus the gold standard of these last good emperors of Rome? When a famine hit, he bought wine and grain with his own private money, gave it away for free. When earthquakes flattened cities and fire burned 300 buildings in Rome, he rebuilt them and still kept saving. And that's how he could maintain the 2.7 billion sesterces surplus. So we're going to connect back to the surplus. Just remember, it's a big deal to have money in the bank and not debt, not needing to raise cash. Your Roman buying power stayed strong. Like if you are coming here from lesson number 50 on Roman wealth, it's about the same daily wage. The economy has been strong. 4 sesterces would be your daily wage, and that's about the same as what we covered in lesson 50. For hundreds of years, steady, strong economy. 4 sesterces can buy 8 pounds of fresh bread. You want a cow, that's 100 to 200 denarii. 4 sesterces is 1 denarius. So if you work for 100 or 200 days, that buys a cow. Slave. The slave trade is huge. 2,000 sesterces for your average slave, 500 denarii. So that's nearly 2 years of daily wages to buy a Roman slave. Put that into today's money. What's a daily wage, or how much is the average yearly salary? And a slave would cost 2 years worth of work as an economic comparison. So we like learning. I'm sharing this to help make you a classical scholar, understand what money is, the buying power. It helps learn how to think and what to do. Like when the money loses its value. That's coming in a future lesson. Inflation will be a problem. That's a spoiler alert. But right now, the Roman Empire does not have a money problem. Antoninus hated waste. He despised cruelty even more. Antoninus kept good governors in their jobs for 7, 8, even 9 years, so that the provinces had steady hands instead of new strangers every spring. He kept one trusted commander of his guard for 20 years. We're more used to these patronage jobs, these advantaged, powerful positions to get rotated with friends. When a nobleman confessed to murdering his own father, a crime that typically means death, Antoninus refused to execute him and had sworn never to put a senator to death. So instead, he marooned the man on a barren island, and that was the whole reign in one choice. Mercy held to the letter, even when the law screamed for typical Roman vengeance. But money was not his real legacy. His real legacy was the law, the Roman law. Before Antoninus, if someone accused you of a crime, you had to prove you were innocent. And Antonius flipped that. He wrote it plainly that proof lies on him who asserts, not on him who denies. So say that again in plain English. If you accuse somebody, you have to prove it. You are innocent until you do. You live inside a country, probably. If you're inside the United States, innocent until proven guilty. We are built on the Roman Republic in concept many times. And this Roman emperor, who died 1,800 years ago, has influenced our law. There are many classical influences. One reason why classicalkingdoms.com can be your guide, stitching all of these lessons together. You have a full classical understanding of the many influences in Western civilization. Pius goes further. Famously in Roman homes, the father, the paterfamilias, had near total power, even over the lives of his slave, that a master who killed his own slave without cause would be punished just like a man who murdered someone else's slave. He let badly abused slaves run to a temple for protection. And if the cruelty was proven, the state could force the master to sell the slave, sell the person to a kinder home. This is justice. This is virtuous. And it sounds like an improvement. The reason that he gave was simple and really far ahead of his time. If it is in everyone's interest, he said, that a person with a fair complaint not be left to suffer. Now, Rome did not free its slaves, but for the first time, the law looked at a slave and saw a person that the state would protect. And that's a real step toward the dignity that nowadays we take for granted. Slavery has been around for most of world history, but we take it for granted in today's day and age that slavery has been greatly reduced. History goes that each one nobly adopted the best man he could find instead of just handing power to a son. By the end of this lesson, we'll reveal that there's only actually been 2 biological sons and only 1 that was actually born into it. All of these other throne power transfers have been adoptions or something different. The catch is, with Trajan having no son, Hadrian having no son, Antoninus, his own little boys, they died young. So choosing the best man, because nature gave them no son to choose, in the tip, you think of a dynasty, you think of succession, the king hands it to his son, but that's not the Roman Empire. This whole golden system was secretly running on the quality of the adoptions. The quality could run out. So let's hold on to that one. It's going to matter at the end, but picture the entire reign. It's peaceful, rich, fair, giving a legacy to us, to the future. It's boring, right? In the best possible way. This is the Roman Empire on cruise control. At age 74, the night watch officer came for the daily password. The emperor gave one word: aquanimitas. Aquanimitas, kind of a calm steadiness of the soul. That single word was about to be tested harder than any word in history. Now, the year AD 161, the throne passes to 2 adopted sons. One was a soldier named Lucius Verus. The other was a philosopher named Marcus Aurelius. And almost the second the old man is buried, the peace shatters. Here's the problem nobody planned for. Far to the south, whole nations are on the move. Germanic and Sarmatian tribes, the Marcomanni, the Quadi, these are barbarian tribes being shoved to the south by an overcrowded area and pressure from other tribes pushing them in. This is not a raid for loot. This is really a wave of migration, a wave of people seeking land. And by AD 167, they break through the Roman Empire. The Danube River, they start to pour across the Danube River. A very cold winter helps some frozen, this is a wide river, so when it's frozen, it's easier to migrate and move across. But they lay siege to Aquileia. That's a rich Roman city. For the first time in generations, the enemy is inside the house of the Romans. Barbarians are in. So Marcus Aurelius, the bookworm, the philosopher, the Stoic, he packs up and he goes to the front. And picture where he ends up. In Carnuntum, Vindobona. These are barbarian areas, cold and muddy, blood-soaked army camps on the edge of the world. And to hold the line, he has to gather a massive force. We're talking 13 full legions and more than 58 units, 58 support units that are jammed into these camps along the river. This is not one quick, glorious battle. This is years of grinding. It's a way of life. Muddy, brutal fighting in these deep northern forests with no Roman civilization and warmth and nothing in sight like that. The emperor, with the troops in the camps at night, he does something unusual. He writes a private diary. And it's not for us. It's actually very popular today. It's truly a classic, but it's not for us. He's writing his diary for himself. We call it Meditations. One entry is signed from the field among the Quadi at Granua. It's a muddy river where he was fighting for his life. And what kinds of things is he putting in his diary? He's coaching himself to stay human Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic. This is a Greek philosophy. It's called Stoicism. Go back to Athens. Go back to 300 BC. A teacher named Zeno started this Stoic philosophy, named for the painted porch in the marketplace area of Athens, the Stoa, this line of columns, like a colonnade for the Romans. The Stoics believe one great reason ran the whole universe. It's the Logos. The Logos. And I love to study the way Logos changes in understanding. And Marcus Aurelius is a Stoic. He's considering that there's some great reason and plan running through the whole universe, that this is a plan. Stoics taught that the Logos was a plan. It's like the word logic, that there is a structure, like a logical path, that gravity always does the same thing, and logic. The Stoics taught one core idea. Some things you control, most things you do not control, like gravity. You don't control the weather. You don't control the plague. You don't control whether the empire survives. The Stoics call all of that indifference the adaphora. What you do control is your judgment, your response, your duty, your choices. You control those things, but you don't control the indifference. And they believed real happiness, a life well lived, grows out of your own virtue, not out of your gold, not from your fame, and not even from your safety. Happiness comes from your virtue. So try it yourself. Like, you bomb a test, you miss the cut for a team, you get a bad evaluation from the boss. You can't control that grade or being in the lineup or what the evaluation says, but you can control your response. So this is a popular sports analogy. You miss the cut, you lose the game. You can't control that lineup anymore. You can't control the score, but you control your response, how you study, how you prepare, how you train, how you move ahead to the next one. The Stoic strives to spend zero energy on the part that he can't change and everything on the part he can change. Have you ever seen event plus response equals outcome? The event is going to be it, but the response is going to be yours. So your quick self-check when some event goes wrong, ask one question: is this event mine to control? And if it isn't, let it go and do the next right, virtuous thing. The right response with virtue and wisdom. That's your move. That's a Stoic. Do you feel Stoic? Is this a brand new concept to you, or do you feel like you've already known it? This would be a great comment. Our class loves to share these ideas because this was a popular sports with a coach here in Central Ohio, of course. You've probably seen it in some other form, but we would love to hear your comments. Just like, how would you apply that? Where do you have a lesson that you could share with other people? Because I could say it's your duty to help other people. Does duty play a role as a Stoic? Now, Marcus Aurelius has absolute power, but he does see a collapsing world around him. It's like he sensed we've had a good 200 years. The Pax Romana is about to end. Listen to how he braced himself each morning. He told himself he would meet the rude, the selfish, and the ungrateful that day. And he decided ahead of time not to let a single one of them steal his peace. Do you get that wisdom? If you knew people are going to be rude to you, bully you, and ungrateful to you, if you knew that at the beginning of your day, you have the power to decide ahead of time not to let a single one of them get to you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself how fast everything disappears. And so then how do you get happiness? The things of this world, he wrote, even the memory of them are gone in no time at all. And he was writing that while bleeding to defend the empire, the barbarians are crossing. They're coming. He saw that. Even though he was having success, if you're skipping ahead to some of the coming lessons, barbarians are going to make it in and all over the place. But Marcus Aurelius knew he wouldn't outlast this history lesson. When everything was going wrong, Marcus wrote one of the toughest lines in all of history. What stands in the way becomes the way. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle isn't blocking the path. The obstacle is the path. The obstacle is the path. So think about that. Now we're going into the Greek embrace of struggle, agon. The virtue of striving for excellence, even if the obstacle is right in your path, that is the path, and that is your journey for excellence. So he was going to need every ounce of wisdom. The worst thing is not these tribes, these various barbarian groups, ethnic groups. In AD 165, Roman soldiers came home from the other side of the empire, a war in the east, and they brought victory. They also brought disease. The Antonine Plague. Most historians think it was a brutal strain of smallpox. It would ride along trade routes. Of course, trade routes. You're going to hear this lesson again, that trade routes are the pathway for disease, for plague. The Dr. Galen wrote down some of these symptoms: a high fever, a black rash, terrible bleeding. And now feel the scale of 5 to 10 million people being killed from this plague. And they don't know what germs are. They don't know the logic behind, washing your hands. They don't know that is a thing, really, except when it stinks really bad, they realize. But 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 people in the entire empire will die at this plague. And Rome would get it the worst, with 2,000 people dying every single day that would be dead the next morning. Disease hit the army the hardest because these soldiers lived so tightly packed together, and Marcus could not control the plague. He could only control what his response was. Have you thought of a moment like this that you've had, maybe smaller but similar obstacle that became the way? How did you navigate it? Did you feel stoic? Were you wise? Students have been answering questions like this in the classrooms since the 90s, and that means sharing some eureka moments and some real wisdom with each other. So if you didn't already, drop it in the chats, because I think we'll all really enjoy your sharing and reading everyone's ideas and seeing how it all stacks up. Now, back to that pile of money that we started talking about. The treasury is draining fast because the army's dying of plague. The tribes, this is expensive. It's barbarians at the gates. And the open question is this: how do you fund a war that's just survival? Like, you're just defending the border. You're not getting new money. Your taxpayers are dying. They're starving. The plague is wiping out a lot of your income sources. And how do you raise an army when there's no money, when people are dying, no living strong people, right? You see the problem. And Marcus sees the problem, and he sees his duty, his stoic duty, to recognize the logos. There is a plan, but what's he going to do next? Marcus Aurelius is called the last good emperor. His wisdom, he's faced with two choices on how to help. He could crush the dying people with new taxes, or something completely different that's never been done before. He does this. He walks into the forum of the deified Trajan in the heart of Rome, and he holds a yard sale. What is a yard sale? A garage sale, an auction. I'm being serious. He stands in that crowd with merchants and soldiers and rich men. They're packed into this great stone square area, and he's got a herald, a professional shouter, who's announcing bids of the emperor's own household. Piece by piece, valuables, special gifts, treasures for 2 straight months. The ruler of the world is auctioning off his best possessions from the palace to the highest bidder. These are solid gold goblets, crystal cups, the royal flagons made for foreign kings, the paintings and statues. His own wife, Faustina, had beautiful gold embroidered silk gowns, and they're up for sale. Even the secret stash of jewels that had belonged to Emperor Hadrian himself, everything must go. And to the Stoic, the gold is indifferent. This is what it means. It's not the point to accumulate these things. The virtue is what's going to end in happiness. Marcus Aurelius is showing us this. He turns the shine of the empire into supplies for the army and asked his people for nothing. No new taxes. And this is how kingdoms become classical. This is, you see, why so much more to know about Marcus Aurelius, but a man with everything gave it away so that the people with nothing would not be crushed under new burdens. I'm sure he had a sinking feeling knowing the trouble that's coming forward. The end of Rome. Really, this is just the end of the Golden Age. Rome's got a long way to go, but it's going to be rough. Now, Marcus Aurelius saw once the worst of the war had passed. He tells the buyer something pretty stunning. If you want to bring your purchase back, you can, and I will refund you in full. No pressure, though. No hard feelings. You wonder how many of those treasures he wanted back. They might have been very personal. But he never held a grudge against anyone who, kept the family treasures. But gold can buy supplies. Gold can't buy soldiers when there aren't healthy people. When the plague had emptied out the legions the way it did, Marcus Aurelius was out of healthy men. So he did the unthinkable. He tore up centuries of strict Roman recruiting rules, and he armed gladiators. He called them the compliant. He drafted groups of freed slaves for the first time. Does this sound like a change in Roman history? Coming here from lesson 46, we covered the way Roman soldiers were recruited. In fact, in lesson 45, remembering Cincinnatus and his virtue, you might have thought of that with Marcus Aurelius. But now Marcus Aurelius has changed the system by drafting slaves, enlisting gladiators, and even common bandits. He brings them to fight the tribes, to defend the borders. And think for a second about who is now holding the line for Rome. The arena fighters who used to kill for sport, and men who were somebody's property a week ago. All of them were given equipment and told to head north. For this, the state survives. Rome's line held. But you're a classical scholar and you understand the cost here. Is this sustainable? The proud professional Roman army, the finest fighting machine in the world, was never the same again. To save the body of the Roman Republic, Marcus Aurelius had to wound it. And that is what survival might have to look like. It's not clean or pretty. It's barely enough. The year is AD 180, and in the frozen camp next to the Danube River, the plague finally takes down the last good emperor. Marcus Aurelius dies. And this is the end of the great experiment. It's the end. Your history book would say Pax Romana is over. But for almost 100 years, these best emperors had no sons. They would adopt the best man they could find. People would say, well, that's wisdom. We need the best ruler. Rule by the best. It's not a republic, but it was a golden age. And it was maybe an improvement over some of what Nero did and Caligula. And, well, maybe it wasn't really good wisdom. It was just good fortune. It was all about the emperors not having a biological son who would take the throne. They had to scout out and find the best. But now Marcus Aurelius has a biological son that was just born in AD 161. He was born into power. He grew up in a purple robe. He was born in the purple, they said. Now he's 18, with no real way to stop Commodus taking the throne. Within months, the philosopher's son Commodus walked away from his father's war and he returned to Rome. He turned into a kind of cruel, glory-hungry tyrant. Commodus is going to be known as totally the opposite of, you call Marcus Aurelius the last good emperor. Commodus is one of the worst. But the throne, the power system, the succession was actually cracked from the very beginning without a firm rule, without law. Choosing the next ruler with the way Commodus just takes over could be a disaster. I know you can flourish from the wisdom in this lesson. You see the role of a good person, holding together a broken system and using virtue for the very best. Good people are priceless, but good rules, a good foundation, a good constitution, that outlasts the good people. Commodus is not good, as you're going to find out, and we've got tough times ahead. The struggle, the obstacle is how kingdoms become classical, and we learn so much from classical Greece and Rome. And the end of the Roman Golden Age is just the beginning of centuries of turmoil before all of Rome ends together. I'm going to let historian Cassius Dio have the last word here. He lived through what is coming next and writes one of the saddest lines in Roman history, because it happens fast. Rome, he said, had fallen from a kingdom of gold into a kingdom of iron and rust. So in the coming lessons, we'll see what the army learns. It's a terrifying secret that real power to make that emperor and to unmake an emperor is no longer in the Senate. It's no longer with the rules, with the governors. It's with the soldiers on the border. And that army's been undermined. The money's been spent. Tough times are coming. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history. And that includes your journey, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.